Okay. So good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first FinTech Friday session. My name is Karila Kilian, and I'm pleased to be moderating the event today. In October 2020, the Alliance published its first FinTech research, how FinTechs can profit from the multi-million dollar female economy, which highlighted the need for capacity building and networking to better understand the female economy and how to serve it. It also highlighted FinTech's need to connect with financial institutions, big techs, and unicorns. And so FinTech Friday is born. It's a monthly thought leadership meetup between FinTechs, financial service providers, big techs, unicorns, and investors working to drive the female economy and unlock its full potential. It includes two main parts, each answering a main need identified by FinTechs. First, capacity building, to help participants get insights on how to build a gender-intelligent business model with experts from big techs, women's market leaders from around the globe. Second, meetups, where up-and-coming FinTechs will introduce their companies and network with experts, financial institutions, and investors to build connections and open new market opportunities. We have a very exciting program lined up for you today, and we hope that you will find it most valuable and will engage with our speakers. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping notes that I'd like to highlight. I believe you're all familiar with Zoom by now, so I simply kindly ask you to keep your microphones on mute and your videos off unless you're a speaker. Use the chat function to engage and ask questions to our panelists. And if you have not already done so, please rename yourselves to make sure your first name is included and your institution name to allow networking to be easier. We will start the session with an insightful panel that will explore the business case for serving women. In the meetup segment of the event, we will be introduced to Daco and Lucy with a brief 3-minute presentation from each. And then we will split the audience into two with either Daco or Lucy in a separate room where you will be able to meet them and ask them your questions directly. You can also easily switch rooms should you wish. With that, let's kick off the first segment. Many of you know this already, but I don't think we can emphasize this enough. The female economy is large, fast-growing, and underserved. The business case for serving women with better financial services is clear. There is a 700 billion revenue opportunity from better serving women as customers. Women are expected to control over 72 trillion in wealth globally, make up 47% of the world's labor force, and nearly 40% of entrepreneurs around the world. But only 65% of women are included in the financial formal system, compared with 72% of men. And when included, women report high levels of dissatisfaction, with 74% reporting being dissatisfied with their bank. And so there is a massive unserved and underserved market, and FinTechs are well positioned to tap into it. Our research in 2020 revealed that FinTechs that track KPIs by sex show a compelling business case for serving the women's market, with 64% of FinTechs that finding that female customers have similar or higher usage rates than men. Further, half of the FinTechs said that women contribute to more than 25% of their overall revenues. And when looking at the CAC or the LTV, the picture was also favorable. Despite this, women customers are underserved by FinTechs, and there is significant opportunity for FinTechs to capture this market. The biggest challenge is that FinTechs aren't aware of the size of the women's market opportunity or of women's dissatisfaction with current services providers. Many don't disaggregate their total addressable market by sex or calculate lifetime value where women do well. They also do not conduct market research into the women's market when building their business models. And then they don't disaggregate customer acquisition cost, which, as per our research, showed is the same or lower for women, or other useful KPIs by sex. So FinTechs are revolutionizing financial services and have clear advantages when it comes to serving women's market, both as B2Cs and B2Bs, enabling incumbents to reach and add value segments that are therefore costly or difficult to reach. FinTechs, like incumbents, also have an opportunity to differentiate themselves by serving the women's market, and as alliance members have clearly demonstrated. So I now want to turn to my panel of industry experts. I now want to turn to my panel of industry experts as we do a deep dive on the business case of serving women and look for recommendations on how fintechs and financial service providers can collaborate to elevate women's financial experiences and accelerate their economic empowerment. And so please welcome Yvonne Greaves, Director of Women in Business, NatWest Group, Darren Peary, Head of Enterprise and Climate Propositions and Engagements, NatWest, Yana Dimitrova, CEO, OpenPaid, and Joel Yarbrough, VP, Asia Pacific Rapid, to this panel. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with me. Yvonne, I want to start with you. Hi. Hi, Darren. Yvonne, I want to start with you. NatWest has a strong value proposition for women. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see your faces. There we go. There. All right. So NatWest has a strong value proposition for women SMEs, including access to finance, financial and business education, awards for recognition delivered through over 800 certified women in business relationship managers, a network of ecosystem service providers, and a national network of business incubators. What is the business case for NatWest Women in Business strategy? And maybe you can share some KPIs.
Thanks, Kirill. So NatWest Group, we've been had a specific women in business proposition since 2003. And I think it's really important to understand that that proposition has grown, expanded and evolved from 2003 as we add on additional services and different streams to our offering. With regards to our primary focus initially was businesses, female businesses up to 2 million turnover. And as the years have progressed, we are now whole of bank across all divisions of NatWest Group, and since 2012 we have been training up our frontline staff, and over 1,500 colleagues have gone through that training since 2003, and that's really to give them a real deep knowledge of the challenges and the barriers, but more importantly the opportunities for supporting our female customers, and also seeing it as a business tool to attract new customers to the bank. So coming on to KPIs, I would say that the real game changer for the Women in Business proposition was in 2016 when we started to gender disaggregate our data. That's when we started to really understand our book and what we could do and where the gaps were, where our customers actually were, where our female customers were, the kind of segments that our customers were in, and then we could start to look at some of the insights and some of the disparities that we could see, and then build the strategy out to develop that. So typically, some of the KPIs, the main KPIs that we track are around new accounts, new businesses starting up in this market, switchers into the bank, businesses that we're acquiring from other competitors, which is a real key target, lending. And although we know that there's disparities between like the type of lending and there's a lot of gender preferences when it comes to lending, it's one of the key parameters that we really look at is our lending book rising? If it is rising, why is it rising? Where is it rising? Is there different challenges? Is there different areas there? And then we also look at the activity, because it's really important to look at the data, but then actually look at the activity, because you need that front end activity coming through our events, through our awards programs, through our accelerator hubs, which Darren will talk about, all that activity coming through, and all supports that women's proposition. So lots of KPIs, lots more KPIs come on every year. And we're very proactive and quite aggressive with our KPIs. So we've set a really a target of 30,000 new businesses by 2023 attracted to the bank. So we for females specifically. So we've set some quite aggressive targets, which is great. So thank you, Kirill. Back to
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, thank you for that. And maybe can you tell us, how do fintechs support your service to women SMEs currently? And maybe you can share some examples of how that happens.
Yeah. So we've done quite a lot of work with different fintechs, and specifically in the accelerator hubs and with our innovation centre, which Darren can talk about. But two good examples that I'd like to just talk about is Free Agent, which is a proposition and a partnership that actually went through our accelerator hub several years ago, and that was all around offering an accountancy software package to the smaller business division of the bank. Now, although it wasn't gender specific, we do know that this proposition was really at the smaller end, and we know that the vast majority of female-owned businesses are within that segment. And when we've done a lot of research on this, we've done a lot of case studies. A lot of the females that have actually taken up this free offering of software have said that it's allowed them time out with their business to actually just go on with the business. So they've used this tool. So not only has it helping the customer that they're able to track their expenses, track their income real time, and not get behind with it, then as a bank, we're also able to then use that data as well to make greater credit decisions, to the extent that we actually bought Free Agent, and it's now part of NatWest Group, and it's one of our core banking offerings. And it's been a real success story, and we've had a huge amount of successes from it, which is encouraging. And then one of the other ones that we're currently working with at the moment is an organisation in the UK called MNEI, and that's all around using artificial intelligence and using the scope. So one of the challenges in the UK is actually working out how many businesses are out there, and where are they all, and what kind of sectors, and really using that AI to really support a large bank like ours to actually deep dive to see where the opportunities are and where can we go after that. So we're working with MNEI, and they are able to gender cut everything to a really, really detailed level, and that is really, really advantageous when we're trying to see how many female-owned businesses are in the UK, how many of them bank with NatWest Group, and are there any specific areas in the UK that we're seeing concentrations of sectors that they're trading in, concentrations around different regions, and where are the differences? And then we can use those insights to really help us continue to build out a proposition. So that's just two examples of some of the fintechs that we've been working with.
Wow, that's nice. And I think what is nice is that each one of the fintechs serves a complete different purpose, right? One is directly towards your client, whereas the second one is actually a service to you as an institution. And it just goes to show that there are so many different ways institution can financial service providers can work with fintechs. And with that, I want to move to Darren. Darren, would you maybe tell us a bit about NatWest's FinTech Hub strategy and accelerator program?
Yeah, so thanks for having us along first and foremost. But I think the fintech sector is obviously of real interest to NatWest, right? We are a large institutionalized fintech in our own right at the moment as we go through a kind of wave of digital transformation around how we run our own business, but also serve our customers. So there's a real active invested interest in the fintech sector for us. There was a recent independent review of the fintech sector in the UK by Ron Khalifa, OBE. And so what we've tried to do is understand the challenges drawn out within the fintech sector, pulled out through that report, and adapt a programme of support for emerging UK fintechs to try and overcome those barriers. Now, we already had in the UK a proposition everyone's talked about as our accelerator programme, and it was sector agnostic, very diverse. It was all about focusing on the leadership within startups and scale-ups, and focusing on that entrepreneurial mindset and capability. And with that, there was a load of support around coaching, events and content, thought leadership, connectivity in communities, partnership, expertise, range. It's an amazing step up for emerging businesses, and we take about 2,000 businesses through that program every year from varied sectors. And what we decided to do on the back of the opportunity around fintech was to develop a specialist aspect within that accelerator program, focusing on fintech. So we dedicate about 10 to 15% of our available spaces on that program to fintechs every year. And what we're trying to do is identify businesses that we think we could work with, or we think can make a difference in the fintech space, and really inject that rocket fuel into those businesses and help them overcome those barriers. We recently signed up to the Fintech Pledge in the UK as an organisation, and this is a coalition of a number of organisations, both in technology and in the finance sector, that have agreed to try and break down barriers to help fintechs do business, gain access, test and learn, collaborate, all of that stuff. And it's a really smart network of partners, if you like, that have come together to try and just massage and grease the wheels for businesses coming through the program. So the Fintech Accelerator, as we call it, is a 6-month program. It's awesome. It gives you access inside NatWest to our experts. So if you're an emerging AI business, we've got an AI team that we will put on the business and help mentor and challenge and really develop the thinking within the business. Similarly, payments, similarly, data and analytics, similarly, open banking, and it goes on and on and on. So there's a real opportunity there around accessing expertise. And I guess also one of the key challenges for businesses, fintechs that are looking to do business with larger firms, is finding that sponsor within the firms that will really champion the technology, champion the solution, and break down those barriers internally to get the investment required to make things happen. And that's a real opportunity, right? So if you're in the accelerator, you're in the body of NatWest, and you can get access to these kind of people and really influence those outcomes. So the accelerators, it provides a pretty unique opportunity for businesses in the UK to access that support. What's really interesting is that it's gone really well, and we are now attracting businesses from a global network. We've had South Korean businesses, Israeli businesses from all over Europe moving to the UK to access this support because of the unique opportunity that it provides.
Nice. And how do you think fintechs can support NatWest service to women SMEs in particular? And in what ways are you integrating a gender lens in your fintech hub strategy and accelerator program?
It's a really interesting question, right? Because there's a bit that says, do you work harder to stimulate gender diversity within the services you provide, right? Because everybody knows the benefits, right? It's well trailed. Yvonne and I work really closely on a kind of broader women in business strategy, because I have a broader remit than the fintech program. But when you look at our accelerator program, it's 50% female-led businesses anyway, organically. And there's something around the environments that we create within the accelerator programs and the support programs that we do across the range that is attractive to female business owners. I think we've done a bit of work on this, so it's educated guessing to a degree, and a bit of kind of experience tells me that it's about the networks that we create and the community that we create, the flexibility in the program so that they can work around personal life, and also this bit around peer-to-peer. So we're linking businesses with common challenges and common experiences together around our programs, and I think that's the female business owners seem to respond really, really well to that aspect. And so we are attracting a 50-50 split, which is not representative of general business or business banking support, as an example. So that's fantastic. I think the other question you asked is about how do we make use of those fintechs within the organization. Well, we actually have a business within our business. It's a kind of design and innovation lab. We call it Open Experience, and it's a place where things are developed that we think will plug a gap for us in our future, or even currently. And a good example of how we disrupt our own organization, we've developed I guess it's a business bank, a digital business bank called Metal. Metal was launched a few years back, and it's been building and growing. And this is actually a rival for our core NatWest business banking solution. And what's been amazing around that is just the disruption that's caused, and then the opportunities that presents around how do we make these two approaches, the very traditional, very, very kind of well-trodden path around providing banking services versus this nimble, agile, digital upstart, if you like, that can really make us think about how do we serve, the customer base, which is huge. I think we're the biggest SME bank on this side. So we do that stuff regularly, and fintechs and emerging fintechs have got a massive part to play in our organisation, as Yvonne's already alluded to.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting, Darren. And that exactly shows what this whole session series is all about, right? The fact that fintechs can bring that agility to the game, and that incumbents now and fintechs as well, they both need each other, right, to drive the economy forward. And with that, I want to move to our first fintech panelist, Jana. Jana, OpenPaid has hi Jana. So OpenPaid has a banking as a service model, and you solve for corporate clients who often feel underserved by incumbent banks. Now, how do your services solve for their challenges?
First of all, Carol, thank you for having me today and for having OpenPaid. It's a real pleasure to join the panel today, and I really am actually very excited to hear what Yvonne and Darren just brought to us, simply because we are a starting business, we're a smaller business, and this is giving us new perspective. So really look forward to contributing to today's discussion, maybe from a slightly different angle as a starting business. So by way of introduction, my name is Jana, I'm the Chief Executive of OpenPaid. In a few words, OpenPaid is a digital B2B banking as a service platform. We are successfully providing embedded payments and banking for the API-led economy. So we are today primarily servicing other fintech companies ourselves. We're servicing trading as well as crypto platforms, all, I guess, of the industries growing at a really, really fast pace. Now, there are two fundamental challenges, I guess, when it comes to API banking and banking and payments that are to be delivered through digital API channels. Those are mostly coming from two areas, one being technological limitations, and the other one is, I guess, around the complexity of the regulatory and the compliance barriers that often make it difficult for new fintechs to access that space. So I guess the way that OpenPaid is solving problems for businesses and often for starting businesses is essentially by combining a very easy to integrate technical platform, very agile, scalable, and enhancing that technology or underpinning that technology, but with a very broad network of license infrastructure, which essentially allows us to service our customers on a cross-border basis across the UK as well as the EEA. Now, what I guess I find really interesting from what both Yvonne and Darren were saying earlier today is the amount or the percentage of female-led businesses. And I do have to admit, OpenPaid as a B2B banking as a service provider is not necessarily tracking performance of its customers on the basis of sex. And I'm very open about that. Yet, I guess, based on some of the data that was shared in the study that you kindly brought to our attention earlier, and what Darren and Yvonne were saying in terms of the NatWest efforts, I think this is something for fintechs to really pause and think about in terms of the percentage of female women-led businesses, and how, I guess, how that should impact the product proposition, the platform proposition, and the level of, I guess, agility that is required from banking as a service providers.
Yeah, thank you, Jana. In a way, you also answered my second question, because I wanted to see whether OpenPaid does disaggregate data by sex, and if not, if you would be willing to do so. And now I know that that's certainly a possibility now that you would look into that, given everything we've heard today.
I think that is generally, or would be more relevant, especially for a business of our size that is relatively new. We've only been going for the last 3 years. We have about 150 staff at that point. So I think that is probably more relevant for businesses that are focusing on a consumer segment. That being said, I think servicing the B2B digital economy, we cannot ignore the fact that more and more businesses are founded and are being grown very successfully by women. So I think having that in mind when we generally tailor our client acquisition strategies or our customer success strategies is something that we will definitely be taking into consideration on a go-forward basis.
Beautiful, music to my ears and our ears, all of us here, I think. Jana, I want to touch very quickly on a side note on another subject that is really important.
Please.
You know, McKinsey in general suggests that women-led businesses are 21% more likely to outperform on profitability. And I know that OpenPaid has quite a diverse leadership Is that why? Was it intentional?
Carol, thank you for that question. It's actually a great question, and thank you for actually giving me the opportunity to share a little bit more about my team. I actually take great pride in the fact that we have a very diverse team, diverse both in terms of the male to female ratios. I'll give you just a couple of data points. First of all, my executive team is split in half. In other words, my chief people officer, our chief growth officers, as well as the chief compliance officer are all three female. And we have that balance on an executive team level, which I genuinely believe makes our team work significantly better, gives us a better environment to tackle the difficult topics that are to be debated, and brings a high level of emotional intelligence, which in a growing business context is extremely important, both in terms of challenge and challenging thoughts and opinions, but also in terms of compromise, which is, again, extremely important. Also, I guess, looking at the broader team at OpenPaid, we have more than 55, I believe we're now close to 60% of women, versus 40 to 42% of male staff. And we're looking very heavily at how we can actually ensure that women do get access to the right level of information, the right level of, I guess, opportunities, so that they can enter the industry. And one example I can give is around internships. We're launching now a new program and are making sure that we can give equal access to those internships, and are stimulating, I guess, the access of young women and into the fintech industry, because ultimately it all comes down, Carol, to my mind, to the right level of education, access to education for women very early on, because that base is then making them either successful entrepreneurs, as Darren mentioned, the 50% in the NatWest incubator, or then successful managers and eventually successful leaders in a business. So having that right level of access to education, and then support at the point of entry into the workforce, and then support in the early years, is incredibly important for women's progression and development and advancement. And in a way, going back to Carol, the agenda of the FinTech Alliance for Women, I guess, the advancement overall of the female economy. So this is the angle that we at OpenPaid are taking through education and early access to employment in the FinTech area.
Yep. Thank you, Jana. And hopefully also, I think having more women would bring that extra perspective and would help you be able to really assess the women's market opportunity with a full team that's more diverse and more understanding of the circumstances. Joel, thank you for being with us. I know you were traveling today and you're quarantined, so I really appreciate all the effort. Now, Rapid provides fintech as a service platforms, allowing easier access to payments, banking services, and much, much more. Who is your main target market, and how are you making a difference for them?
We have two. Thanks for having me, by the way. And yeah, I'm trapped in quarantine, so you can have me for a couple of weeks if you want. So we have really two primary target markets, right? We support global companies that are going hyper local everywhere around the world, and we also support small businesses that are trying to expand in their domestic markets and expand internationally through exporting, et cetera, and to grow. And so what we effectively do are making local payment preferences easy to access for both types of business through a single payment platform that we call FinTech as a service, whether they want to collect money or disperse money or hold money and turn it around and just pay off a supplier, et cetera. So that's really who we're chasing. What I think is interesting for this discussion is, as exactly as you said, I mean, not only are women-owned businesses more successful, which I would order potentially because women are more organized, but also they create more jobs. And I think it's very essential for those of us who work in mission-driven businesses to keep that job lens in mind, because really most of the small business out there, most of the job creation in most economies comes from small businesses, and most small businesses are actually formed by women in many cases. So that's very important. So what we do with our platform that I think is directly helpful, one is we're very focused on increasing the speed of the payment and enabling real-time payment mechanisms and other fast payment mechanisms to actually enable people to get paid faster and then to turn that money around, either put it in their pocket so they have access to working capital, or to, as I said, to pay for their suppliers, et cetera. I think that's particularly important in the women-owned business category, where they might actually have less access to credit or constrained access to credit. And the faster you have access to your actual money, the more working capital you have in your pocket, it actually reduces the demand for credit and moves the liquidity of the economy on further, and funds can be redeployed. From a product and technology standpoint, I think we're actually attacking the market from two ways. And as Jana said, I'm afraid we really don't think about our customers from a gender-led standpoint, so I will admit to the same thing. But the two ways are, one is we actually support a lot of what we would consider no-code solutions, where without any development at all, you can actually use our platform to collect money through single one-off payment requests or bulk invoicing directly from our hosted web portal that you can log into. And we also support, similarly, you can disperse funds, et cetera, without engaging engineering or without engaging a third party to actually develop solutions. We also plug into platforms like Xero, which clearly is a very important platform for businesses that are in formation. They get it from their accountants, they're nudged into it. It lets them create invoices and collect funds, again, without any meaningful coding happening. So they have access to capital that much faster. But then the other piece of it is we actually support quite a lot of marketplace businesses, and marketplace businesses provide a very easy entry point for a diverse range of small businesses to get access to customers, get access to tools and utilities without, again, building their own demand funnel, without acquiring all their own customers. They can benefit from that from a marketplace standpoint. And so to the degree that we support marketplaces all across Asia and the world, that becomes an area where we are directly supportive, I think, as well, of women-owned businesses.
Great. And so what key performance metrics do you measure to calculate your profitability? Is it lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, or the ratio of it? And what does the data tell you about the business case for serving women clients?
I think we, like OpenPaid, are blessed in being early on in our life cycle. So EBITDA and profitability are really not the core of what we're looking for. The core of what we look at really is the total payment volume that we process on our platform, which means people who are getting paid and people who are paying their suppliers, right? And as long as that bubble of payment value expands, we know we're touching more businesses and adding more value to the economy. That's a big part of what we look at, and within that, of course, is transactions. And ultimately, that's driven by the gross number of merchants that we support, right? Merchants we support directly, merchants we support through our channel partners, and merchants we support through marketplaces. So for us to grow our impact, we focus on adding merchants through all channels and adding payment volume for those merchants, and hopefully not losing any money along the way.
And do you disaggregate any of this data? Do you have an idea of the transactions or anything being done by gender?
I'm afraid we really don't split them by ownership in quite that way. I mean, clearly we do KYB on our users. It's an important part of what we do as a regulated business, but we actually haven't looked at that data, I'm afraid, from a gender standpoint.
Would you be willing to look into it?
Happily willing to do it. And I'm quite confident, because of our focus on marketplaces and lower code solutions, as well as channel partnerships, that we'll be looking favorably, but happy to do it. On the team side, sort of internally, just to touch on the question that you asked, Jana, as well, certainly we look at our team from a diversity standpoint, not just gender-wise, although that is one element, but being an international business and a global business, and I sit physically in Singapore, which is in the heart of a very diverse region. We look at national background, educational background, workplace background, industry diversity, a wide range of metrics, because it's very important for us to have a team that's as diverse as the markets we aspire to serve.
Yes, very correct. Now I have a question that I want to ask to all of you. And I think this is one of the key essential, things that we want this thought leadership session to really discuss is how can fintechs and incumbents collaborate to better capture the women's market? So Joel, maybe I start with you and go back up.
Yeah, I think a big part of our business, I mean, underneath our product layer is a network, right? And our network is made up of a diverse range of partners, and very high at the list of key partnerships we have is actually banks. Banks that are single country specialists, regional specialists, and global banks. And each one of them give us the ability to serve customers with different products and services, better pricing, better quality of service potentially. So it's very important for us to have that web of relationships. And I think vice versa, the reason it's important is that we ultimately are attacking use cases that are very often very difficult for banks to address directly from an underwriting standpoint, from a technology standpoint, from a solicitation of users and merchant standpoint. So we believe it's a very symbiotic relationship where we're able to open up new markets effectively or to go deeper in markets that banks struggle to really focus on because of the nature of their decision-making process in some ways. At the same time, we're able to bring bank level capabilities on a global basis to bring things, as I said, right at the top, things like real-time payments, which is a core infrastructural change in 60 plus economies around the world, but to bring that into micro businesses and small businesses that otherwise may not have the ability to integrate that or to automate their solutions on the top of it. So I think it is a very, very healthy symbiotic relationship as we bring these financial services partners to the table.
And this is where we find most women in those small businesses. And that's how I think that collaboration is really crucial. Jana?
I would probably echo Joel's point around the benefit of collaboration and the generation of value within the wider ecosystem. So first and foremost, I think it is important that incumbent banks do not see fintechs as competition, pure competition as such, fully appreciating that there are major overlaps. However, the opportunity for incumbent banks to partner with new fintechs and grow their business is present, because there are several aspects, be it in relation to client onboarding, risk underwriting, client origination. These are all aspects that are today taken care by fintechs through their, I guess, superior at times technology. Yet all fintechs are, as Joel mentioned, reliant on the traditional incumbent banks and their payment rails to the SEPA, SWIFT, and the faster payment network. So that element of collaboration and reliance and understanding of the benefit and value creation within the wider ecosystem in between traditional banks and fintechs is really important. And as, I guess, female-led businesses and female contributors across both sides of incumbent banks and fintechs, there is, I think, a greater opportunity for synergy.
Thank you. Darren?
Yeah, I mentioned previously the Fintech Pledge, which is this partnership coalition around, making the environment for startup and growing fintechs a bit more accepting of the challenges that small business face, and trying to smooth the pathway into opportunities, and things like creating sandpits and testing environments, creating the right connectivity with people, that's something that we're trying to encourage and do that from an organizational standpoint across other organizations and work together with other financial firms to make it a more, I guess, fluid and supportive environment for fintechs. We've also worked with other organizations in the fintech space around innovation scouting, and so spotting these fintechs that might help us revolutionize our own approach to serving customers or simplifying our processes. And a good example of that is in Israel, where in Tel Aviv, we were a founding partner of a kind of co-working fintech environment called The Floor, and ourselves alongside some of the other large UK banks were, working in partnership to create that kind of access to the UK market for emerging fintechs in Israel. Similarly, we have a scouting network across the whole of the world that has our brand and our networks present within those opportunities. So the partnership piece is massively important. We're also a founding member of Innovate Finance, which is again a an organisation set up to kind of create an opportunity to influence policy, an opportunity to influence the industry, as a range of a number of organisations and players that can support finance and emerging finance opportunities. So it's massively important. If I think about it, if I take it right down into the support we provide for emerging fintechs, we provide our accelerator program as an example of support, and we do there around some of the stuff I described earlier. But where we don't have expertise, we'll call on partners from our supply chain to come in and provide support. So Dell Technologies provide a huge amount of support to these fintechs around how they build their business and so services they could use. We have legal firms, we've got data firms, we've got risk firms, we've got all sorts of other organizations that come to the table to help us build a proposition of support around our customers. So yeah, it's massively important. It's the whole thing rests on partnership as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Yvonne, just before you answer that question, I just want to remind people that I'll be opening up the Q&A to the floor. So whoever has any questions, please feel free to add them in the chat and we'll tend to them. Yes, Yvonne, your take on this.
Just really briefly from my perspective, I think if fintechs are building out the proposition, to just consider that gender lens on it and maybe wider diversity lens on it, so that you're actually starting to track that, because sometimes we can build slight bias into systems, and I think if you're aware of that, then it's just building it in, and then we're making sure that we're not excluding people by accident, because most of the time it is by accident.
Yes, very, very true. Very true. All right, so let's see. We have a question from Keith Herman. How are you developing customer-centric financial products to meet the needs of women-led businesses? For example, what if women are not able to provide security for loans where they don't have access to fixed property due to legal or cultural norms? Maybe Yvonne, you take this, and maybe I'd like to hear a fintech's perspective on how they can help in that. Yes.
So security is always an issue, and it's always an issue with all businesses, not just female businesses. And as a bank, what we try to do is we try to look at the whole business, and are there other assets within the business that we can lend against. So, for example, asset finance around asset finance or around invoice finance. So in the UK, there are different ways. There are different ways that we can look at that. Ultimately, there is always going to be challenges around personal guarantees and security, but we work within the guidelines that we are, and we've not got a perfect solution in the UK either. But I would say that we try to work with the business to look at all the other options that we could potentially lend against, maybe leveraging with other organisations around some grant funding. So we look at lots of different ways that we can to support our customers.
Yep, thank you for that. Actually, we have a couple of nice questions from Zainab Ersel, and I'd like to direct it to our fintechs here. Are there any specific sectors where fintechs are more successful in reaching women clients?
The one that jumps to me before Jana grabs the mute button or the mute button, the classic example is really the online lending space, which I think touches exactly on where Yvonne was. Which is, in order to lend effectively, particularly to newer businesses, you need data, right? The absence of security means you have a much greater data requirement. And so all around the world, there are numerous startups, numerous fintechs that are chasing ways to address the data problem, whether it's by aggregating data from non-traditional sources, giving people the ability to apply and create net new data, and then making that data available to lending partnerships, et cetera. In our case, we partner in Asia with a company called LightPay, and they focus on the real estate industry and actually taking a business which is 70-80% female with very, very significant long sales cycles or long time to cash cycles. When I sell a property, I may not get paid for up to 9 months at a time. So they're effectively a specialist factor, and then we support them by giving them the ability to instantly transfer the funds. We offer a card solution so you can turn around and they can use the funds that they're owed to buy things and reinvest in their business, et cetera, more flexibly, and actually address that working capital gap that we find for women businesses. I think there's specialists all around the world looking for that kind of marriage where the rails and the opportunity can come together and create new opportunities for growth.
Jana, you wanted to add anything to that?
No, I'd probably echo what Joel is saying around the lending space. This is also something that we see based on our own client base. But again, for us, it would probably be more difficult to comment given the B2B nature of our services.
And so Zainab has a second part to the question. Are you doing anything on trade finance, e-commerce, or cross-border purchases for women clients?
Sorry, Carl, is this question to me?
Yes.
Again, these are all areas that we are investing in and products that we are offering. I would, however, not be able to substantiate the statement that we are specifically tailoring those products and services to women. However, as I mentioned, those are being developed and conceived and released to the market by a largely female team. I think that is also, I guess that is the part of OpenPaid's contribution to the advancement of the female economy.
All right. We have someone who's commenting on the generation of value that was discussed a little earlier. So I think it's a he. Interesting comments on generation of value through collaboration with regional banks. Do you see particular bright spots in Asia for potential business case in partnership risk sharing with, say, Asian Development Bank?
I think I definitely do see the bright spots, not necessarily related to the ADB, but that's yes as well. But Asia, like a lot of other markets, tends to be a little bit oligopolistic in the sense that there's not a vastly large number of banks in each individual market. It could be as few as 4 or 6 of any great scale. And as a result, they tend to be relatively conservative, and they prefer to onboard and to underwrite a limited number of partners to get access to their infrastructure to avoid systematic risks of various types. So I think there's a great opportunity for partnership to help them bridge that gap between their own conservative underwriting and wanting to provide or have fewer necks to choke. We offer up our neck as a neck to choke. Then we can then enable people to build on top of our services, or through our channel partners can build on top of our services and really open up the market, which is effectively opening up the banking rails and opening up banking capabilities to a much wider audiences than they're able to address themselves directly.
Okay, nice. And I have a question I received in a private message. Yvonne, I want to direct that to you. What specific examples in a bank product are you finding you need to build more than a pink card or a bank card to serve women?
So this is a really great question, because in the UK, we don't typically have female products. We don't go down that route. It's all products open to all our customers. When we looked at the Rose Review for Female Entrepreneurship a couple of years ago, and actually coming out of the Alliance Summit in Jordan a few years ago with Bank Al Etihad and their loan break payments, we've developed an additional product called Family Friendly Products. If a family member, like the male or the female, the parent has an event within their have a child or something happens childcare wise, they can take pay-as-you-go overdraft breaks and loan repayment breaks. So we've built that in, but we've very much not made it a female product, because it's around parenthood, it's around family friendly products. So we're very careful not to badge it as a women's product. We know that sometimes more women take it up. However, we don't want to market it that. All our products, all our offerings around services, the additional services that we offer are women in business strategy and proposition, but not specifically pink products.
Yes, and I just have one final question to our two fintechs, and I just need maybe like a 30-second answer. Top of mind, what do you think can be done to drive fintechs and the fintech ecosystem to get involved and target women? Jana?
Again, I will reiterate the point, Carol, of education, because growth is driven ultimately by innovation. The fundamentals of innovation are expertise and experience and knowledge. And therefore, I would very strongly advocate for access to education and early career opportunities for women. To me, that is the fundamental drive for growth on a go-forward basis for fintechs.
Okay, Joel?
I would say at a con or systematic level, the growth of eKYC, not forcing people to go through time-consuming onboarding processes, heavily paper processes, moving them to digital creates opportunities for people who are time impacted, who are like new entrepreneurs, et cetera, to open up and access services more seamlessly. That's something we benefit from in Asia, is the growth of mobile-first eKYC platforms, both for consumers and businesses. I think around the world, you'll find similarly where those programs exist, more entrepreneurs can get active more quickly, open traditional bank accounts, open non-traditional bank accounts, and ultimately have a flourishing digital payments and digital financial services economy that supports women-owned businesses as well as all new businesses.
Darren, would you like to add just a final word to that?
So there's another question on the list, and I'll try and bring that into the equation. I think the challenges presented to fintechs as far as the research tells us, and also that we experience ourselves, is around how do we overcome barriers, right? And the three main barriers that we would perceive to be the biggest for fintechs are around accessing skills and talent. So the bit that Jana mentioned about knowledge and expertise, there is a shortage of the right type of expertise to help grow businesses exponentially, and that's a global issue, right? And so you find that the best talent is being dragged into very specific areas, and how do we empower more talent and expertise to fuel the growth in businesses. The other bit, I think there's a previous question around cross-border and new markets. Accessing new markets is not easy for any business, and so being able to create the platforms and the connectivity, like the fintech pledge that I talked about is trying to do, is really important. But we need to do more of that stuff to encourage more businesses to overcome barriers. And then age-old, but getting more funding into business. In the UK, 90% of the investment into fintechs, about 4.1 billion per annum, is invested in fintechs in the UK, and 90% of that flows through London, right? So I'm really interested in understanding how I can empower more regional investment into businesses outside of London in the UK, and I'm sure that's a prevalent problem in other regions. So how do we encourage more investment into businesses to help more flourish? Yep.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, the time has ended. And with that, I would like to end our panel discussion. Thank you, Jana, Yvonne, Darren, and Joel for this very rewarding and insightful conversation. And now we move on to part 2 of the FinTech Fridays, the meetup segment. We will now hear from Daco and Lucy in 3-minute presentations on why they target the women's market, their solution or service, and the kind of collaborations they see possible with financial service providers. Now, following the second presentation, we will split the audience into 2 breakout rooms for 10 minutes for you to network and explore business opportunities. We will then regroup and wrap up. I now invite Maria Messina. Hi, Maria, co-founder and CEO of Daco, to make her presentation.
Yeah, of course. First, thank you for having us today. Good afternoon to all. I'm Maria Messina, co-founder CEO of Daco. Daco is a marketplace of health and financial wellness services for employees and their families, aimed to improve their well-being in emerging markets. We have started our journey with the first goal, as you can see on the left side of the screen. So to empower people to make informed decisions for their financial well-being. The market data clearly show that there are a number of barriers impacting the access to health financial wellness services in emerging markets. Some of these include insufficient insurance, too much paperwork and complexity, lack of documentation, poor financial literacy, and poor health literacy. But also evidence suggests that autonomy is considered essential for decision-making in a range of healthcare situations, from healthcare seeking to accessibility. In lower income countries, women have limited autonomy and control over their finances while having to balance family and health needs. But women also play a very important role in how family access to health and financial well-being services. As a significant part of the workforce, and we have seen in the previous slide that female workers represents 1/3 of the total population in lower income countries. Women are the key contributor to the household income, and next, as also homemaker, they are the key decision maker in how and what services are consumed within a family. So DACO aims to empower women through better financial literacy and a range of solutions aimed to improve their health and well-being, access to health and well-being services. As a marketplace of services, and also in order to better engage with women, we will integrate intimately with employees and their families throughout their life, but especially during the life moments that are really relevant to them. In doing so, we aim to build a lasting relationship and trust. So our platform will support this engagement and will offer a variety of information, education, and banking and insurance services designed to engage at the right life moments. So being there in the life moments that matter to women, like starting a career, growing a family, planning their future while working into a corporate or SME, it will help us to understand user needs, collect aggregated data, engage with users to help with their health and well-being needs. So with DACO platform, we want to bring and simplify both education and the access journey to health and well-being services at work, and cover also important moments of user lives. Ultimately, an high employee well-being will boost productivity, teamwork, satisfaction, and even improves a company bottom line. Thank you for your attention. Here's my contacts. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. Very nicely presented. Debbie. It is now Debbie Watkins' turn, who is the co-founder and CEO of Lucy, to make her presentation.
Hi.
Hi, Debbie. Would you like to share your screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Is this working?
Perfectly.
Fantastic. All right, great. Hi, everybody, and thanks for your time. I'm Debbie Watkins, and I'm the CEO and founder of Lucy. Lucy is an integrated financial and business building services app that's been designed to help entrepreneurial women to grow, thrive, and shine. So why are we doing this? Well, essentially because entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of any economy, and women entrepreneurs generate higher revenues, create more jobs, and use their profits more wisely. Helping women entrepreneurs to succeed has a greater impact all round, and yet women entrepreneurs have consistently less access to business building financial services than their male counterparts. And this is everywhere around the world at all socioeconomic levels. So empowering and enabling women to start and grow their own businesses really makes sense for everyone. It just isn't happening enough. And so that is what we at Lucy decided to do. Lucy is a financial services app that has been built from the ground up to help entrepreneurial women everywhere and provide them with the tools that they need to take control of their financial future, to realize their potential, to grow and thrive. So we're focused in a number of areas, including supporting foreign domestic workers to save to start their first business back home, through to helping homepreneurs get started after a career break, small and micro business owners to effectively run and grow their businesses, and enabling successful women to in turn invest in other women. We've recognized that entrepreneurship is stressful, scary, and lonely, and especially if you're a woman. Success depends upon many different factors, and most entrepreneurs don't really have convenient and affordable access to everything that they need to grow and thrive. So we decided to fix that with an integrated suite of holistic services that are delivered seamlessly through our app, affordable, accessible, and relevant. We've started in Singapore and we'll be expanding to Southeast Asia and then beyond. We've recognized that one size fits all is really one size fits none, but one size fits none is typically all that most people get offered from existing financial institutions. And so we're leveraging our extensive experience in customer-centric product design and smart use of technology to really make it personal. Our technology platform has been built from the ground up to enable us to be a front-end relationship manager for a range of different financial services providers, providing up-close and personal services that enable women to really realize their potential, to take control of their financial future, to grow, thrive, and shine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for the very lively presentation on Lucy. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have two different rooms. One will have, the first one will have Maria Messina from DACO, and room number two will have Debbie Watkins from Lucy. And we're going to create the rooms and then split you ad hoc on the groups, and you can easily jump from one group to the other by simply clicking on the breakout rooms that appears at the bottom of your screen and choosing the room you want to switch to. And feel free to really ask your questions and inquire more about these two fintechs. They are offering amazing services, and it's a real opportunity for many of you to be able to collaborate with them. Enjoy. So it's a 10-minute breakout, and then we'll regroup to wrap up the session.
And they have strong relationship with banks and also healthcare providers. And right now we are targeting especially markets in that area, such as Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia. But definitely, of course, our ultimate goal is to partner also with banks and insurance, and we may consider also other areas.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or any comments, in fact, with about some of the insights we discussed in the panel?
Yes, go ahead.
Ivan.
Oh, sorry. I just had a quick question regarding timescales. You know, like obviously you're a very agile business, you can work really, really quickly. I wonder if you ever come across organizations that it can be a source of frustration that it takes you so long from the start of the meetings until you actually have that business deal agreed and contract signed. And I just wondered from your perspective, like how any perspectives that you can share, because obviously I work for a large bank and I know sometimes it can take up to 2 years from an original meeting to sometimes contract signed. Just if you had any insights from your perspective.
Well,
which is say like everywhere from DR Congo to Pakistan to Papua New Guinea, I saw the same thing, right? Which is like all the bank management I was working with were male, and when you go out in the street, you find like at least half of the businesses out there are being run by women, and nobody was really recognizing the potential or doing anything to really address their particular needs. And so that's kind of how the whole concept of Lucy came about.
Fascinating. Thank you. I'll be quiet now and let other people ask their questions.
No worries.
And listen in. Thank you.
So, hi everyone. Whoever feels like just asking a question, kindly unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I'd love to ask a question myself. Maybe, I don't know if this was the question that Shally asked. I was in the other room, so I did not hear. Debbie, how do you think would be the best way that Lucy can collaborate with financial service providers to really, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I mean, our approach is to partner with financial service providers and to actually sort of leveraging them in a white label kind of relationship. That's our plan. And certainly based upon the experience that I've had, is like very few mainstream financial service institutions understand or even want to try and understand female micro entrepreneurs. And so, the value proposition that we bring is that we're sort of managing the whole relationship and all the personalization side of things, but actually bringing them the benefit of consolidated loan books at the back end. And so it's kind of really very much a win-win. I mean, a number of countries I've worked in the past, I lived in Jakarta, for example, and the banks I was working with there just didn't want to hook up to the microfinance institutions for their ATM networks because, quote unquote, we don't want those kind of people cluttering up our ATMs, and so that's the kind of the approach that we're taking, is that we will be this front end brand, relationship management, onboarding, origination, business building tools, front end side of things, and actually sort of leverage the banking platforms at the back end and the banking partnerships, which is kind of a win-win-win situation, really.
Definitely, without a doubt. Anybody would like to add a question to Debbie?
Hi, Debbie, this is Anusha from the IFC, Anusha Khan. Nobody can hear me. Hi. So I had a question. It's really interesting what you're doing in Lucy, and we see that it's app-based, it's on your phone. I'm also wondering about the target segment and the demographics. They're women, they're not necessarily very wealthy, they may not have access to bandwidth, they may have data issues, they may not have the latest phone. And I'm sure you get this question a lot, but could you just comment on how you kind of marry those realities?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're kind of going to, sorry, yeah, we're going to, obviously there's going to be a bit of adapting as we go along. I mean, thankfully, my background is very much in emerging economies. And, one of the stories I always like to quote is
that are, looking at opportunities and try to marry those opportunities more carefully with internal opportunities, right? So fintechs, connecting fintechs with internal partners compared to previously what used to be, bring fintechs in, mentor them for 6 months and let's see what comes out. Versus today, I think the game has changed a little bit to say, let's canvas fintechs depending on the internal opportunity, so that perhaps works. But I think for us, our kind of opportunity where we kind of trying to create this marketplace and we're trying to tell banks, you can actually offer this to your corporates and partners. We have got less traction with the banks than we have got with small organizations outside, which is really disappointing in some ways, because we can actually see that it actually suits the banks because they have the go-to-market model. They have the corporate relationships, they have the product relationships. We have just created a platform that is a perfect distribution channel for us, yet they don't get it.
Thank you for sharing that, Rana. We have about 2 minutes. So one last question from anybody?
Hi, maybe I can put a question in there. So I'm assuming that a relationship with financial service providers was asked, because I just joined the group here and was hearing the answer.
Yep.
But so you are a fintech which is completely, driven and for women. Why do you think women are underserved, and why do you think that, how do you think fintechs actually should be encouraged to do what you're doing? I mean, what you're doing is amazing. I do see the challenges that you do have in accessing financial service providers, and hopefully, I think the momentum will get there as we see more fintechs join the female market. How do you think, and what do you think can be done to drive more fintechs to really drive the full ecosystem and start really creating much bigger opportunities and much bigger, awareness from the financial service providers to collaborate with fintechs?
Okay, well, I think for the women markets, in our case, in DACO case, we are trying to deliver the message of improve more the financial literacy, because in the markets where we are operating, we have a bunch of challenges. One of these is the financial literacy, but also the lack of access to financial services. And women compared to men are a bit behind in this track. And also you have to consider that women, and there are also many surveys and studies on that, they consider themselves less financial literate compared to men. So the levers that we want to use with DACO are indeed improve their education on how they can access to financial services, but we keeping a focus more on the healthcare and well-being value proposition that we want to bring inside corporates. And so there are many problems still in the markets. There are many opportunities for fintech to, of course, fill all these gaps, gender gap in financial services and insurance services. And with DACO, with our marketplace, we want to leverage both. So the education that is still one of the weakness point for women markets, and health and financial services.
Thank you. And with that, I'm sorry, I have to close the breakout rooms and we have to regroup. Thank you for that, Maria.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being with us. We hope you found the session valuable and you were able to really get your questions in to our the up and coming fintechs that were spotlighted, DACO and Lucy. Our next FinTech Fridays is on June 18th, and it will tackle using sex disaggregated data to drive decision making. So it just builds on what we saw today, which is embracing the business case for serving women. We will be sending you the details soon, so keep checking your emails. And I hope we drove change today. That's the whole essence of FinTech Fridays, is to really create that awareness that is today missing. And with that, I bid you a goodbye and hope you can enjoy. And I will be sharing to you by email the contact details for DACO and Lucy so that you all are able to engage with them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kirill.
Thank you. Bye-bye.